Hey there, folks. So basically, I'm going to do a demonstration here of how I get my octaphonic setup into binaural and how I get it controlled with this application here. Basically, it's called MIDI Mo, and it's a wireless panner. So basically, it's just working off my phone. I think it's iOS owned. So yeah, it's just Bluetooth sending MIDI into Ableton, and yeah, that's it. So other than that, I've also got another thing going. I just have this PlayStation controller. Also just making some sounds. So basically, yeah, at this point, I'm talking about MIDI Mo, the app, PlayStation through controller mate into Ableton, and then also the head tracker that I'm wearing, which is the Supperware head tracker, which allows me to do yeah, more immersive kind of audio stuff with binaural. So basically, yeah, the setup I'm using here begins in Ableton. So what you use is a virtual audio device, which I've created in Loopback. So go to Loopback, create a virtual audio device, have 8 channels in it. So at that point, I have an audio device that I can send 8 channels of audio out of Ableton, right? So if I click my preferences, go to audio device, go to output, then octaphonic device is what I called my loopback device. Select that. Then if I drop a surround panner on a channel here, right? There you can find that in the Max for Live section here. So if anyone's not familiar with this, just go to Max and just search surround, and you should get it pretty much straight away there. So it's, yeah, it's hiding in there if you have the suite. Now Ableton is slightly limited here in that it doesn't allow you to drop in any audio channels that are more than 2, so basically stereo. So there's no multi-channel audio like spatial audio, which is unfortunate, but it's just how it is. So to kind of work around this, well, you can decode to say a binaural decode, say, of your ambisonic recordings or something like that. But yeah, it's it'd be nicer if it was integrated feature. So basically what you do is drop a surround panner on a channel, drop it on there last in the chain, because if you put it on there anywhere else before that, it basically will just pan everything that's before it in the chain, and then nothing else after it affects it. So it's, yeah, just everything has to go at the end. That's just the bottom line. The next thing you want to make sure you do here is you're going to send your audio to sends only. Now you could just basically turn off the, to pull your faders down and all these if you wanted, but I think it's just tidier if you go sends only on this and then just don't turn up your sends. So it's just how I do it. Now you can definitely get weird with your sends if you want, like put some effects on there. But basically my setup is a little bit different, in that I use Reaper for the next stage. So yeah, that kind of nicely takes us over to where we're actually going. Well, actually, before I do go, one thing I'll mention about surround panner is when you turn it on first, it defaults to like 4 room or whatever. So yeah, you want to just flick through to whatever setup you want to emulate, say, later. So in my case, I have a octaphonic setup. So this is just how I do things in it. It's for no real particular reason. I like to use Ableton, even though it's not ideal for this, but it's my playground. So you just have to get what you give and all the rest. But anyway, I would go to speaker, select the 8, then I go to my channels here and I would select those 8. So just to reiterate, on the output device here, you go to output config and just make sure you have all your stereo outs on. That's all you need to do. So once that's on, right, you're now looking at setting that device as an input in Reaper, so, or another DAW. So in my case, I'm using Reaper. So if I open up Reaper and go to my preferences straight away, I go to my input device and select octaphonic. Now my output, I do need to use the external sound card that I'm using because I want to monitor it in headphones. So I can't have just an octaphonic input and output device. It needs to go to another output source. So external headphones would potentially work if you didn't have a audio interface with you. So just make sure that your input device is selected to Octaphonic, or whatever you name your loopback device. So where that takes us then, right, is we're in Reaper. We have that selected, and then what we want to do is we want to create a channel in Reaper, right? So what I have here is just a regular input channel. Now it actually has 64 channel ins, right? Now the reason why is because that will handle up to fourth order, or I think, or fifth order ambisonics, and basically that means that I have more room to play with. Plus the effects that I'm using here are like, they're going to affect it in an ambisonic field, as opposed to like a stereo or octaphonic. So my octaphonic is on a horizontal plane only, whereas the effects and stuff here, and the panner within here, which would be the multi-encoder, this will allow me to actually pan this around further. Now what I'm doing is I'm sending my channel 1 into channel 1, and I've obviously panned it in relation to my Ableton banner, which is also exactly the same as what my setup is configured like in real life. So I have a multi-encoder that has basically 8 input sources on it. They're all corresponding to the first 8 channels of my input, which is my octaphonic device, which is the 8 channels of the surround panner. And yeah, so they're just in there now. Like you can basically do whatever you want in here as well. Like, so say just to demonstrate, I'll just use the PlayStation controller here, right, which I'll get to in another video. So I can pan this. So that's allowing me to pan, and I'm also able to pan within the surround panner in Ableton. So what I tend to do is I do my panning in Ableton, and I just have these as 8 individual outputs. That's it. Now after that, I put the FDN reverb on, which is a as I said there, a multi-channel kind of reverb. So it's very, very cool. Makes it sound like you're in a space, which is great because it's very dry otherwise. Because all of the sounds coming from Ableton are going to be kind of mono sums of what they were before they went into the panner. So sometimes you might find that your width and your spatialization gets lost a little bit unless you're set up in real life in a very reverberant room. But if you're not, then you know, this is the way, I suppose, to emulate that by putting your 8 channels through a reverb that emulates a 360-degree space. So that's pretty cool there. I also have a delay going on here. It's just kind of down low. Again, this is a delay which is in 7th order ambisonics, which is our 64 channel, which I'm only using 8 of, but the 8 channels that go into this are then echoed and delayed within that 7th order space, so it does give that 3-dimensional effect. And by 3-dimensional, I mean not just on a horizontal plane, I mean on a vertical axis as well, and your Z. So yeah, it's cool. Other than that, then it goes into a multi-band compressor. This is because I found that there's like a major drop off in volume, but like going through, I think, loopback. So the headroom within loopback is massive. So what I do is I send it in here, and then I just drive the signal through this multiband. And as you see there, it's also selected to the 7th order ambisonics, so 64 channel, which is excessive in the sense that I'm only on a horizontal plane. But as I said, those effects, they will all echo within the 360-degree space, which is kind of a cool feature. Other than that, there is the last part of the chain here is the scene rotator. So this is basically where I have my Supperware bridgehead here. It's a head tracker. So a bridgehead is the software. So basically head tracker settings is where you start off with that. And there's a really good video of Ben Supper, who is the manufacturer and creator of this. So look, just watch his video. It's spot on. I'll put a link to it in the description there as well. But yeah, so I set this up, and one thing I did do by accident was I put the head tracker in upside down. So I was like, what's going on here? So I flipped it around and it was fine then. But interestingly, well, we'll get to this actually. The bridge settings is where you go after. Now, depending on what you're using, I'm using the IEM scene rotator, IEM suite binaural. It's just, get that. It's an ambisonic suite. It's free. It's made by like Electronic Institute or something, and they're legends. They give it away for free, and it's top notch. So does the job. So what you're doing here is you're selecting your format. Tracking apparently 50 hertz is grand. You shouldn't need 100. So IEMC Rotator, then go to an OSC bridge. Create this OSC bridge. Put it onto just 9,000 was an example that Ben actually emailed to me. And what you want to do then is you want to go to your scene rotator. You want to go down to the OSC option down here. Sorry, I'll just bring that back up. So there's a OSC. Select that. Put it listen to port. Type in 9,000 there. I think it was typing it in anyway. Yeah. And then it just gets all the messages you need from this. Now, what I did have to do here was invert quarter naions. So I'm not really too like like well read on the science behind all of this and the physics and that, but basically if I didn't have this inverted, everything was backwards. So when I inverted it, it was fine. So just something to watch out for if you are using the IEM suite to do this. So yeah, so that's basically the setup. Other than that, then it's just going out through a binaural decoder, which it just has a EQ curve for the Bear Dynamics, which is great because I'm outputting that through SSL2, which is my sound card. Now I do have SonarWorks, which has the calibration for my Bear Dynamics on it, but sometimes outputting through SonarWorks in a situation like this isn't great because it introduces latency. So just better off going out through the headphone output on whatever, but use the curve that's provided. There's loads of popular headphones there, so it's great. So yeah, join me in the next video and we'll talk a bit about the PlayStation controller setup. Chat to you then.